On Talk of the Nation, we focus on the CAADP summit, where President Museveni has expressed concern at the continuing economic challenges that continue to afflict agricultural growth in Africa. Now, this came during the African Union Extraordinary CAADP Summit, which closed today in Munyonyo. However, concerns persist over how Africa continues to fund agriculture. And to help us understand what is at stake, we are joined by Agnes Chirabo, the Executive Director of Food Rights Alliance. Good evening to you, Agnes, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening and Happy New Year. I'm happy to be back.
A Happy New Year to you too. As a stakeholder in this summit, I would like you to paint for us a picture and give us a general overview of what transpired at the summit and what we may need to know that came out from that summit.
Thank you so much. Number one, for us, we are very excited that for the third time yet again, heads of governments and states in Africa have recommitted themselves to this particular sector, the agriculture sector, and to do it better. Because today it has been a landmark decision for the third time. The first time was in Maputo, then after 10 years, they recommitted themselves in Malabo. They had a choice not to recommit in Kampala, but we have seen the commitment, we have seen the zeal, we have seen a high spirit. And for the next decade, our heads of governments and states have committed themselves to just 6 areas, and every person can memorize them. Number one, they are no longer looking at agriculture as it was in Maputo and in Malabo. This time round, they are adopting a systems approach. They desire to see that in Africa there is sustainable food production, there is agro-industrialization, and there is food trade. They desire and they have committed themselves to boost the financing and the investment in the agri-food system. They have committed themselves to ensure that Africa is food secure and there is no malnutrition. They have also committed themselves on building an agri-food system that is resilient. They have committed themselves to inclusivity and equity, the issues of women and younger people in the agri-food system and their centrality and empowerment. And I think lastly, they have committed themselves to strengthen for the first time governance of the agri-food system. So for us, we are looking forward to see a transformed agri-food system in Africa. We are looking forward to see a resilient agri-food system in Africa, because as we speak now, Africa's agri-food system is among the least resilient. So these are the commitments that our governments have made today in Kampala, and they are going to be a point of reference for programming, for policy at national level, but also at regional level and continental level for the next decade.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I want to start looking at some of the commitments that you say were arrived at or were adopted at the summit. One of them being the enhancing of investment and finance in agriculture. Now, if you're to recall, the commitment of the Malabo Declaration in 2014 also was the commitment number 2 was the same. And so how different then are we going to address this issue of limited funding? Because we see that the smallholder farmers are the ones that are majorly vulnerable to this, yet they're the ones that take up 80%, they're the ones that participate in agriculture. So what is it that we are going to do this time round, right, to ensure that these smallholder farmers are well equipped?
I think this commitment to allocate at least 10% public financing to the agri-food system remains a nightmare. Previously, financing for the case of Uganda, for instance, it was sector-based. Would look at agriculture, health, and others independently. But now, starting with the National Development Plan 3, we took a program approach, which is a systems approach. And I do not want to hear people who are saying 10% for the agri-food system is everywhere. Because the government of Uganda decided to take a program approach, which is a systems approach. And you would ask yourselves, of the several trillions annual budget, agro-industrialization that brings together water, trade, agriculture, and so many others, it is at less than 3%. So it has remained a nightmare because we are not seeing the high-level political commitment I have seen in Munyonyo in our annual budgets and financing. Politicians and our leaders in Africa still think Africa is wide. The rains will follow, the food will happen. They have not actually realized that our agri-food system is an investment area. And they also think that private sector, donors, and all other people will come and invest in our agri-food system. Secondly, our governments up to the present day have failed to coordinate private resources that are going into the agri-food system. So at the end of the day, the actors, our agri-food system, the people, the processes, all of them have remained non-resilient, and our poverty levels are going up. Africa is becoming hungry. Africa is becoming malnourished. Africa is becoming poor. Africa is becoming a home of unemployed people, simply because the sector that engages and can absorb many of the people in Africa has continued to receive lip service, and it is quite very unfortunate.
But do you think this 10% of the budget allocation is achievable? Because looking at also, like I said, this is another recommitment that has been arrived at, and looking at the previous recommitment, how many of the African countries have been able to live up to that?
It is not about how many African countries. Let me answer the first question. Is it achievable? The response is yes, because this is the sector that is engaging the bulk of your population. Put your money where your people are, where a majority of your people are, and you're going to get returns. Then the second part of your question, are there countries that have lived or moved closer? And we are seeing things happening. A case in point is Ethiopia. Another case in point is Rwanda. For the closing generation of CAADP, Rwanda has been the super performer. It's because there is commitment and there are no excuses. I feel saddened to see leaders, technical and political, saying, oh, when you see a road, that is agriculture. When you see an airport, that is agriculture. Please, that is everything. We need to be intentional in investing in agri-based infrastructure. We need to be intentional on data systems. We need to be intentional on which kind of inputs we are using in our agri-food systems. We need to be intentional on where are the markets, the reliable, the most feasible markets where we are going to sell our agri products. Okay. Less of that.
What then will it take? I know you have highlighted some of them, but what will it take for a holistic transformation to be realized in the agriculture sector? Also addressing issues of hunger. Here in Uganda particularly, we've seen the Karamoja sub-region consistently, year in, year out, suffering from hunger, malnutrition, and all the other things.
Even the entire country.
Okay.
The most recent census revealed that 40% of the households in Uganda struggle to find a meal. Those are 4 households in every 10 households. So hunger is no longer in Karamoja. Hunger is just in your neighborhood. Malnutrition is everywhere. Well, the question is, what will it take? Number one, we need the highest political will. We know the power that the highest political will hold. We do not want excuses that Africa is poor. Africa is not short of resources. The viewers out there, let us just make a reflection. How many stories we have read last year, 2024, of the monies that have gone missing? So we have a lot of money. That money can even disappear in trillions, in billions. So we have the money. What we are lacking is the highest political will. We need leadership. We need governance, structured and directed governance in the agri-food system. But we are all over the place. If we are all over the place, the president, even in Munyonyo, has been talking about how Africa's food system is of food chidachonka. He loves talking about chidachonkas. The farmers in Africa are chidachonkas. They are farming to eat, but also our planning, our programming, our systems of our agro-food system, Your Excellency, are chidachonkas. We are all over the place, and we are not going to get anywhere.
But he did highlight that now about 67% households have moved away from the chidachonka and now embracing the commercial agriculture.
You know, there is a difference between embracing and actually doing it. That is the desire, Your Excellency. It is not exactly what is happening. Even those that had moved are fast dropping back into the same trap because, Your Excellency, things are not happening. Credit has remained very expensive and inaccessible. The markets are unpredictable, they are unreliable. The farmers, the aggregators, the offsetters, all are in search for the market. So the production is not directed to a particular market. I'm here to cry out on behalf of the so many farmers and the so many MSMEs and investors in our agri-food system. Your Excellency, I wish to address His Excellency today because it is their date has been the summit. Farmers and agri-food system actors need predictable markets, and Your Excellency, markets are negotiated, markets are protected, markets are predictable, and markets are never assumed.
Okay, and so finally, with the meeting concluding today, or which concluded today, what do you say is the end game for the farmers as well as the economists and planners?
It's the cry out of commitment number 6. Aligning our planning and programming to these inspirations of CAADP. Otherwise, CAADP will remain a declaration. Second, let us all stakeholders hold our governments accountable. I know we are going for an election year. Our government has just made this commitment. Let us demand for accountability, not only from our politicians, but even annually in our annual budgets and plans. If our NDP4 is not speaking to the agro-industrialization, if the district development plans are not speaking to the CAADP inspirations, if our investment plans in the respective ministries, departments and agencies are short of that, please never blame CAADP, blame yourselves, blame your leaders.
Okay, thank you so much, Agnes Chirabo, the Executive Director at Food Rights Alliance, a major stakeholder at the CAADP Summit. And she has painted for us a picture of all the good promises that have been made during this summit. And you and I remain to watch the space if these promises and commitments will be implemented. And with that, we take a short break. And when we return, we'll hear from the world of sport.